All right, everyone. Hey, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hi, welcome. Woo! For those of you who might not be familiar with that music, that was Hallucination, formerly known as a tribe called Red, and a song called Sisters. And one of the things that we have tried to do this year is to also decolonize our music. The past several years, I've chosen English pop tunes and hits to come back into, and this year we're mixing it up a little bit. This is your warning for those of you who are still lingering in the back, getting coffee and snacks, that there are plenty of seats up at the front. We are sold out this year. It's the first time that the Alliance Conference has sold out in advance. So, woo! And as a tip, I'm going to tell you that if this is your first time coming to an Alliance Conference, can I just see a raise of hands, first time? Ooh, awesome, look at all those first-timers. When you hear the music playing, it's your time to get your bum in seats, okay? Because we're going to be starting. And with that, I am going to leave the stage. I'm not even going to introduce myself for those who don't know me, because I'll be introduced at a later time. But
good morning. Good morning. Good morning, 1, 2. Bonjour. That was the fastest 3 minutes of all times. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Liban Gabra Mikael. I'm the CEO of Taibu Community Health Center, and I'm also on the board of the Alliance. Taibu serves the Black community across the Greater Toronto area. We also serve all the residents of the Malvern neighborhood in Scarborough, and we have a special focus on the Francophone population in Scarborough. As my co-MC, which I will be introducing later on, as she said, we would like to welcome you to our 2024 conference. Again, a sold-out event for the first time for the Alliance, so well done. The title is Co-Designing the Future of Primary Healthcare, and we're so glad that you could all be with us this morning for 2 days of engaging workshops, learning sessions, plenaries, networks, and celebrations. Your presence at this conference and what you bring to each session is what makes this a great conference. Nous sommes ravis de pouvoir nous réunir en personne avec vous cette année encore pour nous concentrer sur la façon de faire des soins de santé primaire, la base durable de nos systèmes de santé et de garantir que l'équité en matière de santé soit au cœur de la transformation au cours avec les équipes Santé Ontario. Bienvenue et merci de votre présence. Before we get started with the morning's program, I would like to begin with an acknowledgement of the land that we're gathering on for these meetings. I will start with the official line of land acknowledgement. We recognize that the work of the Alliance for Healthier Communities and Alliance members takes place across what is now called Ontario, on traditional territories of the Indigenous people who have lived here since time immemorial and have deep connections to these lands. Our meeting this morning and the next 2 days takes place on the lands of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, Mississauga of the Credit First Nation, the Mississauga, and the Wendake-Wenshaw. These lands are covered by the Toronto Purchase and Treaty 13 of 1805, and Richmond Hill lands are covered by Williams Treaty. We further acknowledge that Ontario is covered by 46 treaties, agreements, and land purchases, as well as unceded territories. We're grateful for the opportunity to live, meet, and work on this territory. Ontario continues to be home to vibrant, diverse Indigenous communities who have distinct and specific histories and needs, as well as constitutionally protected and treaty rights. We honor this diversity and respect the knowledge, leadership, and governance frameworks within Indigenous communities. In recognition of this, we commit to building allyship relationship with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples in order to enhance our knowledge and appreciation of the many histories and voices within Ontario. We also commit to sharing and upholding responsibilities to all who now live on these lands, the land itself, and the resources that make our lives possible. Now, this is the official line, and I believe there's also a need to do some personal reflection because reading a script does not really mean land acknowledgement. I think we have a responsibility to learn the history, to unlearn some of the things that we have learned, and also to acknowledge personally. So I would like to take a moment to just reflect on some of the things I have learned in recent times, and one of the things that really have stayed with me doing this kind of exercise is appreciating and recognizing, acknowledging the grandfather's teaching or grandmother's teaching. And recently at our last board, we had very, very important and interesting and meaningful conversation. And what I took from there is the 7 teachings around courage, respect, humility, truth, honesty, love, and wisdom are very important values and principles to carry with us when we are engaging with each other, and we are also talking about some important things which we will be doing during this conference. So I would like to take this moment to say to you, if you could take those, remember those values and principles of speaking the truth when it is required, having respect and care for each other, I think that would also make the conference even more beautiful as we go along. I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge our ancestors who have come to this land sometimes, or most of the times forcefully, through the transatlantic slave trade. And I would like to take a moment to recognize, honor, and pay tribute to the ancestors and their legacy, because their labor, sacrifice, bravery, and contributions are an integral part of Canada's rich history and diversity. And one of the reasons why I'm standing here before you as a Black person and speaking to such a large audience is because of the giants who have passed before me. So I would like to take that moment to recognize. So with that opening remark, I would like to invite Aniko Varpalotai, who is chair of the Alliance Board, to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieben, and good morning and welcome to all delegates and guests of the 2024 Alliance for Healthier Communities Conference. I'm so glad to see so many people here today. My name is Aniko Varpalotai. I serve as the chair of the board of the Alliance for Healthier Communities. I'm also a board member at Central Community Health Centre, located in St. Thomas in southwestern Ontario. Over the next few days, we'll spend some time talking and sharing knowledge about the best ways to enable our shared vision towards strengthening primary health care as the foundation of our healthcare system here in Ontario. Together, we'll explore how to future-proof our healthcare systems for people and communities across our province who face barriers to equitable health and well-being. To help get things started today, it's my pleasure to introduce the Honourable Deputy Premier of Ontario and Minister of Health, Sylvia Jones, to the podium, and to welcome delegates and share some opening remarks with you. Deputy Premier Jones, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Well, good morning, everyone. I think we need to start Queen's Park with that dancing. As long as I don't have to be second. So thank you for the invitation to join you here today. I believe, and I hope you see, that there is a lot of things happening in a healthcare system, not silos, system. And I want to share some of those highlights with you today and just continue a dialogue, because as we make changes in the Ministry of Health, at the government, we want to ensure that those policies are actually making an impact for your residents, for your communities. So it's really important to me that the dialogue continues, those conversations happen. The feedback is part of, frankly, why I am here and why I believe it is important for us to continue to work together to serve our communities and our patients. On behalf of Premier Ford and our entire government, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you in attendance here at this year's Alliance for Healthier Communities Conference. And can I say that as I read about what some of the goals that you're achieving in the next 2 days, when I see words like innovation, it makes me very, very happy. So thank you. Thank you to the Alliance, your leadership, and members for being valuable healthcare and community partners, and for everything that you do to provide and improve access to comprehensive care across Ontario. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, our government is making record investments in healthcare. Through our Your Health plan, we are taking bold and innovative action to strengthen our healthcare system now and for decades to come. We're making it faster, easier, and more convenient for people to connect to the care they need closer to home, to ensure all Ontarians have a better healthcare experience at all stages of life, no matter where they live. As part of our plan, we are expanding access to care in community. This includes investing in the largest expansion of interprofessional primary care teams in the province's history. And thank you. By adding tens of thousands of new nurses, new nurse practitioners, and new physicians, specifically family doctors, to our healthcare workforce. It was great to have the Alliance for Healthier Communities join me in February when our government announced an important step forward in expanding primary care, investing $110 million to connect 328,000 people to primary care teams. This investment will add over 400 new primary care providers as part of 78 new and expanded interprofessional primary care teams in communities across Ontario. And many of these teams will focus on providing comprehensive care to populations that have faced barriers to accessing these services, such as vulnerable seniors, those living with mental health and addictions challenges, and Indigenous communities. And in our government's 2024 budget, we are doing even more to build on this investment, allocating over $500 million over 3 years for additional new and expanded interprofessional primary care teams. We know it works for the patients, and it works for the providers. This will, of course, also focus on high-needs areas and connect approximately 600,000 people to primary health care. This investment will provide support to all existing interprofessional primary care teams through ongoing operational funding for their facilities and their supplies, so you can continue to provide high-quality care to your patients. Our government is also undertaking the largest expansion of medical school education in over 15 years, adding hundreds of new undergraduate and residency positions at every Ontario medical school, while opening a new medical school at Toronto Metropolitan University in Brampton and a new medical school at York University in Vaughan that will be the first in Canada to focus training on primary care docs. And in the Brampton facility, the focus will be on training physicians in interdisciplinary teams. It's almost like we know where the future is and we're going there together. Our government is working on our health and community partners in many other ways to continue to improve patient experiences and health outcomes for everyone in our province, regardless of where they live or who they are. We're investing in better ways to work with Black communities to improve health outcomes. This includes increasing access to culturally responsive screening for prevalent illnesses and offering more wellness clinics. Last year, our government announced the creation of the Peel Black Health and Social Services Hub to conveniently connect Black individuals and families to healthcare and social services in one place close to home. We are supporting the important work of Indigenous primary healthcare organizations that deliver a wide range of services with sites serving First Nations and urban Indigenous communities. And we're continuing to invest in care tailored to the needs of Indigenous communities, including public health initiatives, mental health and addiction services, and maternal care. We continue to work with Francophone health providers to expand and improve access to French language health services. Through investments in Ontario Health and our Regional Translation Network program, we are strengthening French language service capacity and extending translation services to more agencies. Building from the successes of the High Priority Communities strategy, our government has dedicated multi-year investments in locally driven population health models to foster collaboration between High Priority Community Strategy partners and Ontario health teams, to focus on goals based on community needs, including barrier-free access to health services through wellness fairs and mobile clinics, and increasing access to cancer and chronic disease preventative screening, mental health, and addiction support and primary care. These supports will improve health outcomes for communities that need it most. You know, I can talk for a long time about the things that we're doing in the Ministry of Health, whether it is scope of practice changes, whether it is the expansion of primary care, the need for that strengthening our multidisciplinary teams. But I just want to say none of this happens without willing partners who are willing to take the initiative, to take that leap of faith, because you know that it is the appropriate thing to do to serve your communities and your patients. So I thank you for your trust and faith and that willingness to innovate, to try new things, to see how it impacts your community. And thank you again for inviting me to join you today and for your efforts to develop and implement these important initiatives that are connecting Ontarians to timely and high-quality healthcare that is responsive to their needs. I wish you a successful conference. I look forward to hearing some of the innovative ideas that come out of as a result of your conversations. And I wish you well. Stay well. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Minister Jones, and for taking the time to share your words with community health leaders, innovators, and change makers. We look forward to working with you in the future, and thank you again for being here.
All right. Mic is working now, good. Okay. Things move quickly and we are adaptable. That's what we do in the sector. So I now have the privilege of formally introducing the co-MC. Please wait on Michelle, wait. You're not the only one who can do things, you know. Right. So there's a better way to introduce is with the music and the dance.
I have to follow you? Yeah. I'm not really good at following.
If you can dance.
This is a dance?
Yeah.
Interpretive?
Yeah.
Okay. What are we interpreting? The future! Yeah. This is the future of dance. You're going to see how I'm sneakily even than I can get. I have to move it. I lost the beat. I can't talk and dance at the same time.
All right.
Okay. All right. Oh, you're going to test my knees now. Yes!
All right. So it is a great honor and pleasure to formally introduce a very good friend, colleague for so many years.
So many years.
Michelle. Yes, and Michelle is the ED at Centertown in Community Health Center.
Oh yeah,
Ottawa.
look at my peeps. Peeps. I have another peep somewhere in the audience.
As you may know, she's also a force to be reckoned with, both on stage and in the sector. And so it's a great honor and pleasure to share the stage with you.
I'm so thrilled that you are here. You know, I scared off last year's co-host.
He never said anything to me.
Yeah, and they were like, who will come up? I'm so thrilled it's you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Right.
So, yes. Oh, no, we have some housekeeping maybe for you.
Yes.
I know the minister left, though, before I could ask her any questions. I had a few.
You had a few?
I had a few. Just a few. I mean, like 159 or 72 or something like that, you know, because there are things that are going on in the healthcare system. And, you know, I just wanted to talk about when that next envelope is coming, because I am just, like, you give me an inch, and I am going to ask for more. Yeah.
So you know there is a big event, like an election coming up soon.
There's
right?
an election.
Yes.
And when's that happening?
2026.
Well, we better get ready. And get ready and start asking. Have you heard that the Alliance has an advocacy campaign?
No.
No. Oh, I hope people have heard about Alliance's advocacy campaign and everybody in this room is ready to take action, are they not? Well, I am sorry. If we are going to change and get that investment, I need to hear a little bit more. Are you ready to take action on the advocacy campaign? That's what I'm talking about. Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about. Excellent. So, shall we do some housekeeping?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to do some housekeeping. And I have to take a look at my notes because there is a lot of housekeeping that we just need to get through so that you can have the best possible experience here at the conference. The first is, I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking for a friend how you're doing. And you don't have to tell me. You can whisper in my ear, or this year we're using Menti, and it's inside the phone as part of AI. And you don't need to be scared. You don't need to be scared about it being in your phone. But Menti is here, and throughout the conference, we're going to be popping Menti up and asking you to interact with us so that we can make it a really interactive event. So there's Menti throughout the conference. You'll see that. And this year, as part of that, with that Menti, it also has allowed us, we used this at the executive leaders meeting, and what was wonderful about it is it gave it just-in-time information. It allowed people to interact with us, it allowed us to be able to collect that data, and it's a really great tool for keeping track of questions that are coming in from the audience. I mean, we'll still have microphones, but questions coming in from the audience. And so, really quickly, I'm going to pull it up. We're going to practice. Because, you know, some of us may not be all that comfortable with technology. If you've got your smartphones out, if you can just scan this, and in one word, tell me really quickly how you're doing today. Okay, we'll just wait for this to come up once people get the QR code. Okay, we'll check back in just a minute when that starts to come up, and I'll check in with my friend. Pardon, it's saying what? Waiting for presenter. Waiting for the presenter. Okay, this is where, see, technology, sometimes we need a little still human assistance. It's okay, it doesn't all run automatically by itself, but the presenter will cue it up with one word. Thank you for letting me know, Centertown team. My comms person's got me. She's like, yes, I'll give that to you. While we're waiting for that to come up for the presenter, just keep checking on it, I do want to talk a little bit about some things that will help you make the best out of the conference today. So, before you head out after the plenary, do not go now. There's still a plenary coming, okay? So this is not your cue to go now. But you can check out all the locations and details on the learning sessions and other agenda items on the conference app. And so this is really where you get the most accurate and up-to-date information. But I am also told to tell you that the paper is reliable. But if you show up someplace and it's not the right thing, check the app, okay? So it's one thing. Once you open the app, you'll have access to all the conference session descriptions, speakers, rooms, all of that. This year, we also have a learning session being offered by every single plenary session who is with us. A plenary speaker who's with us. So sometimes when we've had the plenaries, people have been like, I want to hear more. This year, you get the opportunity to hear more. And so if you signed up for one of those sessions, you'll have an opportunity to speak and have more questions there. However, you have to check where you are registered on the back of your name tags, because as I mentioned, we are sold out. And some of the workshops are absolutely filled to capacity. So if you haven't registered, you can't attend. And so if it's full, please respect that and don't try and do what I do usually at the conference, which is sneak around to the only ones that I want to go to and I never registered for. Do not be like Michelle Hirschbees. Also, on the name tag, on top of the name tags, some of them have emojis that tell folks each person's comfort level with contact at the conference. So here's some examples. Of course, on mine, I don't have any because I think people can see my level of engagement. I'm not shy. Please feel free to come up and chat. And I like interaction, Lieben.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, do it.
Really?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, no, I know. It's just, I'm telling you all my secrets. Okay. But yes. So So if you do want additional stickers and tags to bling you out, please feel free to check in at the Alliance booth and you can customize your lanyard. And we've got a helpful mat up here showing you a couple of other things that are available, including the Alliance photo booth, new this year. And it's on the east side of the building. You see where the camera is. It's a selfie, so it's a self-taking photo booth. I mean, not self-taking photo booth yet. You have to get your camera and you have to do the thing. But if you could tag your posts when you post them on whatever your social media platform is with hashtag Alliance or hashtag Alliance 2024, hashtag Future is Community. We'll be looking for those on Instagram, LinkedIn, and if anybody is still using X. How optimistic of you to put X on here, Jason. Like, just have fun with it. Okay, do we have anything on Menti yet? What have we got? Have we got anything on Menti yet? Did it work? Did the presenter interact? Did the human being do the push the button they're supposed to push? Yes, they did. Okay. Well, while we're waiting for that to come up, I'm going to tell you, because I'm already getting a little parched, is that if you're feeling it, they're water stations, so we have generally not put water on tables, but right behind where the AV is the water station. Please feel free to fill up your bottles or glasses with water from there. And if you are looking for someone, if you ordered special meals and you didn't come for breakfast and you were wondering where that was, the special meals are generally out by the information booth. But if something is missing and you need something, there are helpful volunteers that have volunteer on their tags. And please feel free to reach out to them and they will absolutely help you. If you need, and that is true for if you need directions or something you can't figure out, check the information stations. They are located and they've got this cute little flag, very smiley, friendly volunteers. There's also an information session booth down on the lower level by the waterfall. The volunteers are all wearing lime green. So if you see somebody wearing lime green, that's generally a person who can help you out. And so with that, if you need space to think quietly, this is not me, but if you need space to think quietly, we do have a meditation, mindfulness, and prayer room, which is situated in the Oak Ridges room. So it was in a different location, but it's the Oak Ridges room. And then there's also a chill room. And this is specially for you, Rachel, that has games and puzzles in it on the lower level. Yeah. I know you love puzzles. We have puzzle stations at Centertown Community Health Center. So feel free to visit these spaces if you need quiet space or just a little bit different tempo. And then as you're making your way to the learning sessions, I want to make sure that you visit the exhibit areas. So these exhibitors, they really come and support our conference, but they also have a great array of products and information. And if you get in the bags when you came in and checked in, you have an exhibitor passport. If you get this stamped by all of the exhibitors, and please interact with them, please do not just go up and say, I need you to stamp my passport so that I can get entered in the fabulous draw. Take a breath, have a moment, listen to what they have to say. Because if you do that and you bring in your passport completed, there is a fabulous prize from Destination Niagara during the last session, Plenary for tomorrow. There's also, and just as a reminder, you have to be here when we draw your name. So you have to be here in order to do it. So don't go through all of the work of filling it out and then not be here, because that's not going to happen. We still want you to go visit all the booths, okay? And so with the learning, while you're busy collecting that, the poster boards are just in the hallway, just past all of the elevators. Oh yeah, look, 14, the poster board. There's some great posters of evaluation and research that your colleagues from across the province have been doing. And so that's happening. And then also any of the breaks. If you wish to buy tickets for tonight's Transformational Change Awards Gala, you have to buy them at the registration area before 12 p.m. and you have to pick up your physical tickets for the event. Some people have asked me about the word gala. It is not a black tie event. Please feel free to show up in your favorite dress and there will be dancing afterwards. and then our pre-gala cocktails and appetizers begin at 4:45 this afternoon at the end there. So that's some of our housekeeping items that we have for you today. Did we get the Menti working at all? Did we get the cloud kind of going with the Menti? No. Jason's like, no. We're having it worked for people, but it's not popping up with the whole interactive features. So clearly the future has not quite arrived at the Alliance conference yet. Yeah.
Or we were ahead.
Oh,
in
we
the
were
future.
ahead. We were
And
ahead in the future, and then we came. See, that's what happens when we move so fast like this on the stage. It was like, I know. Yeah. This is like within this. So we're getting. Okay. So this is the technical part of the show where Wendy slips us notes around where we are at, and you're on. Is it?
Yeah.
Perfect. I'm going to get off the stage then.
Don't leave me.
Okay. I'll stand in solidarity.
All right. Okay. Thank you for all those housekeeping rules.
Not rules, guidelines, information. I'm not big on rules, you know that.
Rules is like in the future. It's rules.
It's rules.
Yeah.
Oh, I go on.
We're in the future, so it's
okay.
rules. Okay. Guidelines.
Guidelines. Okay.
But now we have the honor and privilege of introducing the first plenary of the conference this morning. It's generously sponsored by the Indigenous Primary Healthcare Council, IPHCC. We were struggling yesterday with trying to kind of say it, so it's IPHCC, so good. Is of course a close partner of the Alliance across our shared membership and shared advocacy in advancing Indigenous health in Indigenous hands and access to culturally safe healthcare. We're grateful not only for IPHCC's sponsorship of this plenary, but also because they are sharing with us the guest host for this morning conversation, Marlon Cole. Marlon Cole is the Director of Information Management and Communications at the Indigenous Primary Healthcare Council, where he plays a crucial role in advancing data sovereignty and governance. With a robust background in healthcare industry, Marlon has been a pivotal leader in data management, communications, and information management at IPHCC. I didn't know you were like a data geek. I knew otherwise. But no, good. No, I'm joking. So before joining IPHCC, Marlon served as the Director of Digital Transformation and Chief Information Officer at the Winnebago Area Health Authority for over 5 years. His tenure showcased his dedication to enhancing healthcare services for Indigenous populations through innovative digital solutions. Marlon is also a father of 2 boys with a passion for finance and marketing, a settler from Jamaica with West African descent. That's diversity, right? Marlon brings a diverse and enriched perspective. His extensive experience and expertise makes him an invaluable asset to our discussion. Please join me in welcoming Marlon to the plenary stage to introduce our keynote guest and this morning's plenary conversation, By the Water. Over to you, Marlon.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I was wondering if you guys had breakfast. All right, so last year I was brought in to have the first conduct or host the first plenary session like what I'm doing right now. And I had the crowd talking about coffee because usually coffee brings people alive, right? Say coffee, right? So coffee brings people alive. So I had this side of the audience saying coffee, whatever coffee, and we were talking a bunch of stuff about coffee. But I was like the dark roast coffee, like the strong one, right? So the one to bring the life and the energy. I saw Lieben earlier. He said to me, Marlon, give me the vibes, give me that energy because, trust me. But when I saw Michelle dance, I'm like, wow, that's pretty strong. If he didn't get that energy from Michelle, that was interesting. Now, but today you may see me dressed in blue. Our conversation today is going to be speaking about water. Water. And it's not just water, but water as it relates to the environment. But someone saw me on the way and they said to me, Marlon, aren't you hot in that jacket? I'm like, no, just think of me as hot water. So on this side, I wanted to say hot, and this side, I wanted to say water. Hot? Hot. Water. Come on, you guys can do better than that. This side. Hot. Water. We're going to be talking about some really interesting, steamy stuff as it relates to water today in correlation to health. And we're going to be having a waterside conversation. I know we may have seen fireside conversation, but today's waterside conversation will be focusing on some critical challenges that we see in our sector every single day. We'll be discussing the topic of exploring Indigenous health in relation to the environment. And our discussion will not only surround water, but we'll be looking at the correlation between water and health. We'll be highlighting areas tied to the social determinants of health, and we'll be hearing from our guests strategies and what we can do to implement now in our sector. My name is Marlon B. Cole, and as the initials suggest, MBC. If you remove the B, what do we get? Come on, guys, you sound hungry. Come on. When we remove the B, what do we get? MC. So that's what I'll be for today's discussion. So with that being said, let me turn on my radio announcer voice. And I want to say, folks, you're now tuned into Zone. You're now listening to By the Water on Cool 95.5 FM, powered by our sponsor, the Indigenous Primary Healthcare Council, where Indigenous health stays in Indigenous hands. That was a paid service announcement. Again, if I didn't say that, I probably would have lost my job tomorrow, so I had to say that piece. All right, so it's my esteemed pleasure to introduce our guest of honor, Autumn Peltier, the indomitable voice of a generation that stands at the forefront of environmental activism as a fierce advocate for clean water and Indigenous rights. Hailing from Mukamukan, unceded territory on Manitoulin Island, Autumn's journey began at a tender age of 8. She sparked deep-rooted connection to her Anishinaabe heritage. She swiftly rose to prominence after capturing the world's attention with her impassioned plea to protect Earth's most vital resource, water. By this time, she was 12, and Autumn had already addressed the Assembly of First Nations, earning recognition from the international leaders and environmentalists alike. Her relentless dedication was crystallized when she confronted the then and current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, urging him to honor his commitment to Indigenous communities and safeguard their access to clean water. This courageous encounter amplified her message globally, making her a beacon of hope and resilience. Autumn's advocacy transcends mere words. She embodies action and perseverance. As the Chief Water Commissioner for the Anishinaabe Nation, she tirelessly champions the rights of her people and the preservation of their sacred waters. Her work has been acknowledged by the United Nations, where she delivered a powerful address to the UN General Assembly, echoing the urgent call for environmental justice and sustainable stewardship. While balancing her role as a student, activist, and leader, Autumn has garnered numerous accolades, including being named one of the top 25 environmentalists under 25 by the Starfish Canada. Her influence extends beyond speeches and awards. Her collaborations with global organizations to implement tangible solutions for water protection and community empowerment. Finally, Autumn's journey is far from over, folks. With every step, Autumn challenges complacency, inspires change, and reminds the world of the sacred responsibility we all share in protecting our planet. Her legacy is a testament to the power of youth, the strength of Indigenous voices, and the enduring spirit for those who fight for the future. Folks, give it up for Autumn as she joins us on stage. See it?
Thank you.
Let me get real comfortable here. Let me see what angle I can get comfortable. Are you okay? I don't need some water.
Yeah, actually.
Let me help you
Yes.
with the water. So let me do my duties right now by giving Autumn some water. Here you go, Autumn.
Thank you.
Before we begin, we do have some prizes and surprises that we want to share with the audience. It's going to be a sharing event as well, a discussion. It's a waterside conversation by the water. The first question, really, Autumn, I just wanted to share that I too have a connection with water. When I came to Canada 8 years ago, I actually moved to a First Nation community for over 5 years. And I participated in their sweats. And it turned out that my spirit name was Sea Turtle. I gave my tobacco, and I got Sea Turtle as my spirit name. That then confirmed to me why I like to sleep in water and I like to just go at the beach and relax. Can you share with us your journey? How did you become such a passionate advocate for water, the Indigenous rights, and protecting our environmental resources?
Yes, of course. Well, I'll start by saying that I was very fortunate to be able to be raised by a family who was able to know our cultural teachings, our language, and our history. And so I've honestly, like, ceremony-wise, I can't even remember the first time I went to a ceremony and practiced my culture and spent time, doing things that were so involved with the community and my people. And where the spark really began for me was when I was 8 years old. And I was attending a water ceremony in a First Nations community that was about an hour and a half away, so it's not too far, but it was very nearby. And at the time, 8 years old, I had no idea what a boil water advisory was at the time, because I grew up in a community where I was fortunate enough to be able to drink my water, so of course I thought that was normal. So I ended up having to use the washroom, and when I went to the washroom, of course, you wash your hands. So all over the wall that said boil water advisory, not for consumption, and do not drink the water. Again, 8 years old, I have no idea what this means, and so I asked my mom, what's a boil water advisory? Why can't I wash my hands? Why do I have to use hand sanitizer? And she said, well, this community, their water's contaminated, it's dirty, they can't drink it, and they haven't been able to drink it for over 20 years. And of course, I still don't really have a grasp of this whole issue, but what really sat with me was her telling me that they couldn't drink their water, and I couldn't imagine what it would, what living a life not being able to simply wash your hands would be like. And when I walked back out to go back to the ceremony, there was children that were my age and much younger running around and just so innocent and happy. And what really sat with me was, wow, these kids have no idea. They've never lived a life where you're able to just drink their water from their tap. These mothers who have newborn babies have to depend on bottled water to clean them, feed their children and their families, simply bathe and simply brush your teeth. They don't have access to these basic human rights. And so seeing those kids and how innocent they were living in this community is what really ignited me to use my voice and want to say something about it.
That's interesting. When I was doing the research and looking into, and guys, we have the Menti on screen, so if you do have questions for Autumn, please submit your responses. We're at 19 responses, and if you're seeing responses, you can always upvote. So you're liking a particular response, you don't have to type it again, you could just vote on it and it will get our attention, right? Autumn, your inspiration, Aunt Josephine, I noticed she was an inspiration to you, and the audience may not know who Aunt Josephine is. If you don't know who Aunt Josephine is, say Aunt Josephine. Aunt Josephine. All right, so they want to know about Aunt Josephine and your connection to Aunt Josephine. What I must say for the audience that they didn't know, what they would not know too, is that Aunt Josephine received a Governor General's, a Lieutenant General's award for conservation. Can you speak more about your inspiration and the inspiration that she brought to you to do this work?
Yes, of course. Well, my Auntie Josephine, she was also a water protector and a water walker, and she's the one who actually created the Mother Earth Water Walks as her form of advocacy and raising awareness on the clean drinking water issue that First Nations communities face. And I, again, for as long as I can remember spending time with her, and spending time with her meant always learning about my culture, always learning something new. There was never a time where I didn't learn something new when I was with her. And that can not even just about water, like everything that I've learned culturally about being a woman, I've learned from her. So she kind of had that like significance for me in my life, and she was a very like positive role model for me who always was stemmed from cultural heritage. And so we spent a lot of time together, and she's the one who kind of inspired me to use my voice about the water, because when I first started to learn about the water issues in communities, I, of course, asked her, because she was involved with the water walks, and she's been doing this work and advocating and raising awareness way long before I was even born. So this has been an issue for that long. And when I started to kind of get curious about using my voice and wanting to speak up, she's the one who kind of encouraged me and told me to just do it. And she told me not to think about it too much, and whatever you gotta say, just say it. Because if you don't say it, you would have never said it. So just doing it and just taking that like initiative is kind of what she inspired me to do. And yeah, she plays a very significant role in the reason why I speak about water and Indigenous rights.
Perfect. That's amazing. When we were talking to Autumn prior to today, Jeff, who is her colleague, said that the worst question that you can ask is no question at all. So if you're on Menti, feel free. Don't be shy. Ask a question. What I did recently, I bought some plants at Home Depot. Mm-hmm. When I got the plants, they were looking a bit droopy. And I spoke to the water. Mm-hmm. I spoke to the water with love. And within 2 days, those were the strongest plants that I've ever grown. Mm-hmm. And I felt so good. The question that I want to ask you going forward here is, how does the lack of clean drinking water in Indigenous communities highlight the broader health equity or the lack thereof?
Well, I think that I'll start by talking about the sacredness of water and what that means to me. Because from a very young age, again, I can remember learning about the sacredness of water. And what I'm going to share with you is actually one of the most significant teachings that helped me like feel connected and really feel that water is so powerful. And it was when my mother actually told me a teaching that she received, and it was that I come from my mother's water. She comes from her mother's water. My grandmother comes from her mother's water, and my great-great-grandmother comes from her mother's water. And so that's how we're all interconnected. And for Indigenous people, we believe that water is alive and that it has a spirit and that it's the lifeblood of Mother Earth. So I feel that teaching in itself kind of represents that lifeblood, that significance that it plays for all of us. And without water, literally none of us would be here. Because we all were born in water. We lived in water for 9 months. We need that for our sacred development. And so without water, we literally wouldn't be able to be here today. So for that's why we're all here able to be in this room. And so it was learning about that and looking at it in that perspective. We're all interconnected. And if the water is polluted, then, the aqua life in the water is polluted, and oftentimes animals are eating the life that comes from water, and of course we are at the same time, and we're eating the animals who are eating these contaminated, animals that are coming from the water. Mm-hmm. And so even like the sacred medicines that grow around water are contaminated at times when the water is contaminated. So that's kind of how, as like a cycle of life, we're all interconnected with water. And so if the water is sick, we're all sick. And that's how you look at it. And for Indigenous people, holistic well-being and holistic health is so important. And holistic health means physical, emotional, and our spiritual well-being. And if the water is contaminated and it's ill, we're ill. Our well-being is not well. So if our like spiritual and like cultural beliefs aren't flourishing, we're not flourishing. So that's kind of how, like, I guess contaminated water and like having a bad environment can infect people.
Nice. Now, Lieben started off to say that he didn't know that I was a data geek, and in your response just now, you mentioned that if the water is sick, we're all sick. Now, why is that so? Can I have any data person in the house say what percentage of the body's composure is made up of water? 90%. I hear 80. 80? 95%? All right. I didn't know the answer, guys, but thank you so much. All right. So moving on to our next question, a follow-up from that. What advice can you give organizations here today to address these issues in their communities as it relates to inequities that we're seeing in the health system as it relates to the lack of clean water?
Well, I think that awareness and collaboration is how we can kind of, all work together. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to understanding Indigenous people and our issues that some of us may face. And, just the willingness to learn is your first step at being a good ally. And that doesn't mean that you have to know exactly everything and all the answers to everything, because even I don't know all the answers to everything. Again, I'm only 19 years old, and I don't know all the answers. And so learning is a huge part of how you can kind of work together and collaborate. And it fosters trust. It builds trust with Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. So I find that building that connection is so vital and important.
Okay. Looking at the health equity charter by the Alliance and its members, it speaks about the intersecting impacts of various forms of discrimination, oppression, and colonialism, right? How do you see the intersection of environmental justice and health equity playing out in Indigenous communities?
I think I'll answer that by saying, how do all of you think discrimination, colonialism, and oppression affect Indigenous people? What do you think that looks like? I don't think it's that positive. I don't think it's that great. So all of these issues, they're all one issue. I could talk about water rights, I can talk about missing and murdered Indigenous women, I could talk about racism and discrimination, but it all stems from the same issue. It's all a systemic structure. The systemic structure is what the problem is, because back when the Indian Act was put in place, it inevitably meant that Indigenous people were viewed as less than, and it aided in creating this structural expectation for people that Indigenous people kind of need to be oppressed. They need to be colonized. And so these things that these expectations that were put in place hundreds of years ago, they're still in effect today. The reason that we don't have clean drinking water right now is because that's the effects of colonialism and oppression and genocide. These are all issues that are interconnected. It's not just one. Well, it is just one, but all of these issues all come together, so.
Okay. So understanding that the systemic barriers and challenges that we're seeing is what the core of what we're looking at here for the Health Equity Charter. Now, if we're going to turn our eyes now from a traditional lens, how does the traditional knowledge of knowing and being inform your advocacy? And how can it be integrated into modern primary health care practices to improve health outcomes for the impact of advocacy?
Well, traditional practice being put into modern day practice would mean, acknowledging that we had our own traditional practices and ways of health and how we dealt with our health issues. We already had those put in place, and we already had our traditional ways of living. And so I find that acknowledging that and respecting that is the first step at working together in that type of way. And could you say the question again? Sorry.
So no, how can we be integrating into modern primary care practices to improve health outcomes for the Indigenous people?
Of course. Well, working together, again, is the main way we do that. And understanding when working with Indigenous people in healthcare, it is going to be very different. And you do have to approach it when not everyone is affected the same. And I find that if you're working with Indigenous people in healthcare, you kind of have to expect people who have faced racism and discrimination, who have faced horrible experiences within healthcare. Even my own personal experience, I have a sister, and she was diagnosed with epilepsy. And she has 3 types of epilepsy, actually. And we even had a negative experience with healthcare. So understanding where Indigenous people are coming from at times is the first way that you can be a great person. And I think that I say that because Be that one person that made a positive impact on someone. Be that one person that in a space where they're can be intimidated or feel not comfortable, out of place, be that person who makes them feel comfortable. Be that person who makes them feel welcomed. Be that person who understands them and respects them and their perspectives and their insight. Because even with my personal experience with healthcare, I have experienced racism and discrimination, and it was not easy to get my sister help. So being that person who cares and is willing to listen and learn and respect is the way to do that.
Okay, thanks, Autumn. Now we're going to pause right now for the audience feedback. There are 2 microphones. If somebody wants to go to the microphone to ask a question of Autumn, we can do so. There are mentee questions as well. So if you're feeling a bit shy, we can take questions from mentee. But I want to give the live audience, if you want to go up and ask a question. And also there will be the email later, Ask Me Anything. Autumn will be there. So the questions that you ask in the mentee, we're going to take them there too. So don't feel like your question will be unanswered. And as we go along, we'll be hearing more from Autumn. So anyone? I saw a question. I'm not seeing the mentee right now, but I did see a question that asked, how do we treat clean water? How do we address clean water for big cities? So big cities where it's harder, it's more regulated. What would be your advice for organization treating clean water for big cities?
Well, I don't really know my answer to that, to be completely honest, but what that did spark for me was a piece of insight. And when I talk about clean water issues, I often talk about this example, and talking about how Indigenous people have faced not being able to drink water for 15, 10, sometimes even over 20 years. Okay, so if this was to happen in Ottawa, Toronto, or Vancouver, think about how fast that would be resolved. How fast you would have clean drinking water again.
That's really good.
So I think that goes to show you the level of racism and systemic racism and discrimination that Indigenous people face in Canada.
Absolutely, yes. Looking at the systemic challenges there, and that's a good point, the speed at which the larger urban centers the water challenges will be resolved compared to the Indigenous community is absurd. Going back to our questions, no question is a dumb question, right? Maybe I'm going to ask the audience, the data geeks in the house, what's the boiling point for water? Yeah, it's a serious question. What is the Celsius amount that water needs to get to for boiling point? Oh, we have one guy said depends over here with his mustache. Thank you so much. All right, that's my colleague, so I can make fun of him, right? He has a cool mustache, by the way. So we did hear someone say 100, and that's correct. So going back to our regular programming, when we look at advocating for environmental justice, I know it must be taxing, mentally taxing, and you're always going to events like these, and you're telling people, sharing your story. How do you manage mentally, and what advice do you have for others in similar capacity as you?
Well, managing mentally, it definitely is taxing, and it definitely is stressful, and I've been doing this since I was a very young girl, and so it definitely it's been a learning experience. I'm still learning how to manage my mental health and manage my work at the same time. And I think, but the main thing would be that finding the balance between your work and what you enjoy doing is so important, because you do need to have that off time. You do need to have things you do enjoy doing besides work and besides, what you're passionate about. Because at times you want to do it all the time, but you can't, because you have to take care of your mental health and well-being. And I faced a lot of bullying growing up in school, and I faced a lot of not being accepted in so many spaces because I was viewed as so different. Even though I never felt like I was, never viewed myself as different, I guess that just wasn't the same for other people. But it is very taxing, and there is times where I did feel like giving up, and there's times where I was like, I really cannot do this anymore. It's so hard. Because being in the public eye is definitely not easy. Because no matter where you are, where you go, you're always going to have negative people. But remembering that there is also a very large majority of positive people who support you is what keeps me going. And having people like my sister, my friends, my family, and even my cat is like the things that I need to stay balanced. You do need like people you enjoy being around, and like that familial and peer support is so important. And I don't think I would have been able to do it without my sister, or even my cat, because like having that is so important. And I've found like other hobbies besides doing, advocating, and I actually bodybuild. And I've been bodybuilding for the last 3.5 years, going on 4. You can't tell because of my baggy shirt, but those are the things you need to kind of have physical activity and things you enjoy doing outside of work, and so that's kind of how I was able to do it. But also the most important thing, remembering who I'm doing it for and why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because when it does become hard, what I think about is those little kids who always tell me how much I inspire them or how much like they're looking up to me. And I have to think about the type of role model I want to be. What type of image do I want to portray for these young kids who look up to me? There's literally kids who view me and think that I'm Moana. They think that I'm a Disney princess. So what Disney princess gives up? What Disney princess lets people get to them? So.
Yes. Now, I can't be a Disney princess, for sure. But what I can do, I can get a cat and name my cat Stash.
Yeah.
The name Stash is just a shortening for mustache, like my colleague right here. And so the work that I have, because, with having Stash in my life, my busy day working in data, it's sometimes frustrating. But speaking about data, there's little information that speaks about data here for Indigenous health. How do you recommend we best advocate for having systems in place or breaking the silos and the systemic barriers by using data to tell that story? What would you recommend? What's your advice?
I would recommend educating yourself and educating others around you. And I think that proper education is the most important thing when it comes to addressing Indigenous issues and talking about Indigenous issues, because there can be misinformation and there can be misleading information. But I find that firsthand experience is the best knowledge and the best experience. Even when I was trying to find out what a boil water advisory was, I took the initiative to actually go to a community that hasn't been able to drink their water for over 20 years. And it was specifically Attawapiskat First Nation. And so I went to that community and I seen what the living situations were like. I even talked to kids who talk about how not being able to drink their water affects them and affects their families. I actually had a young girl tell me how much it hurts her to see her 70-plus-year-old grandparents have to carry buckets of water back and forth 2 kilometers to the one water pump in their community. So, getting that firsthand experience and talking to people who've actually experienced these things is the best way to, accumulate that knowledge. And, using your voice within organizations, within institutions and workplaces is how you, foster systemic change. Talking about it is how we create change. And it's one thing to talk about it, but another thing to actually do it and actually find solutions is a whole other level. So, simply just talking about it and using your voice, because our voices are so much more powerful than you realize. When I first spoke up and I first used my voice and talked about these issues, never did I know that I would be where I am today. I had no idea I'd be able to speak at the United Nations about Indigenous issues. Never did I think that. So simply just doing it and not thinking about it is the best thing to do, and just using your voice.
Well, give her a round of applause. Thank you. I feel your passion when you mention Attawapiskat, and because I worked at Winnebago, which is in the James and Hudson Bay region, and Attawapiskat was one of the communities in which I served. So oftentimes I would go to Attawapiskat, and it's not only affecting Indigenous people. The people that work and support Indigenous health in these communities are also affected, because I saw nurses, the directors, everyone had to be taking bottles of water, clean water, so that they can then food. I've been invited for dinner, and they have to go get a bottle of water. And so this is real life situation, guys. These are real life issues, and it's important that we try to break these barriers down and eradicate, not just break them, but eradicate them. Right? We do have person at stage number 2 that has a question for you. Number 3, sorry.
Yeah. Hi, thank you. Jennifer Snyder from Kingston, CHC. Autumn, I admire your strength, clearly inside and out. My question is regarding the boiling water advisories in all the Indigenous communities. My sense has been that things are improving, but slowly. Do you have a perspective on what that actually means? We're in our Kingston region, our OHT, we have Tyendinaga close by, and I know that things have improved there, but they're not fully back to having clean water. So what is your sense of the improvement in our province or even across Canada for this issue?
I do have a few
Thank
comments about that, and I'll start with saying that I believe that they have the intention to improve, but I don't believe that there is actually significant improvement happening. I believe that there's little improvement, but when it comes to clean drinking water in First Nations communities, it's like taking a step forward and 2 steps back every single time, and not to trust data. And this is actually going to stem off an answer I forgot to share, but don't trust data because it's not always accurate, and it isn't accurate, especially regarding Indigenous issues. It's not accurate because you have the lack of, willingness to want to actually collect that data and actually take it. And that's not even just for clean drinking water issues. That's for issues like missing a murdered Indigenous woman. The numbers are much greater than you think they are because we have inaccurate data and a lack of actual data being taken. So the numbers are not accurate, and the situation is bigger than we do think it is, and bigger than we do see. But I believe that they have the intention to improve, but I don't think it's really being enforced as well as it could be. And when it comes to making promises with government and Indigenous people, we do not have a very, very great history. So I know that the Liberal government actually a few years back had created this goal to resolve all boil water advisories in First Nations communities in Canada by March of 2022. It's not March, but it's 2024, way past March 2024 now. And we're still facing the same issues we've been facing for the last 100 years. Yeah. And it's very hard to kind of have that hope in this generation because of how long these issues have been going on. And my Auntie Josephine literally passed away, the day she literally passed away, she was advocating for water. And I've been doing this for almost 12 years now. And how much longer am I gonna have to do this? Will I die advocating for the same thing I was advocating since I was 8 years old? So that's kind of how I look at it. And also, when it comes to clean drinking water, the government will say that it's resolved, but that may not mean that the whole entire community is resolved. That may just even mean that only a portion of the community is resolved. But then it will go into data saying it is resolved. So there is complete inaccuracy when it comes to clean drinking water issues and the way that they're dealt with in government in Canada.
Thank you. I think it's horrendous.
Yeah.
And I'd like to snap my fingers. I think so much more should be done about it, and I appreciate the topic today. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was at dinner yesterday, and hearing that comment, if I could snap my finger like Thanos, like one of the Avengers, I would definitely get rid of these advisories and ensure that we eradicate and break down these systems. We do have a question at number 2.
Minoga Zep, Massaquoi. My question is, I want to build on what this other lady had said. And part of it is the only statistics that I think are accurate are the ones that Indigenous people create. Those are very accurate. And my question to you is a couple. One is, how many boil water advisories are there for First Nations across Canada? And what is the population statistic on those First Nations? So that's question number 1. What is your solution to those questions? And secondly, with the raw sewage that's being dumped recently from Hamilton, and we see there's raw sewage out of Montreal, what is your solution to that? How should Canada look at those issues that are really affecting many people in this country?
Well, I will say that numbers do fluctuate, and I actually recently tried to look into how many there was boil water advisories there were in Canada, and I think the number ranged between 104 to 144. So I believe it's what, it says I believe it's between that, but I obviously, of course, with my opinions, I believe it's much more than that. It's much greater. And actually, I was attending a conference a while back, and it was a U.S. conference, and at the U.S. conference, they had said that there was no drinking water issues in the United States. Yeah. And that's, completely inaccurate because it actually affects the United States much more than it affects Canada, because there's a lot less justice for Indigenous people in the United States. And could you also maybe repeat the last part of your question?
So, and part of the previous question is, are there any non-Indigenous boiled water advisories in this country? So I'm just curious, how is that dealt with by the government and non-Indigenous people? But my second question is, with the raw sewage dumpage in Hamilton recently, as well as Montreal, what is your solution to that? How should Canada look at that and remedy that situation? Because obviously it's going to happen somewhere else, and millions of people are affected by those dumpage into the waters.
Yes, well, I do often acknowledge that the water issues aren't just a First Nations issue. This is something that does affect everyone. This doesn't only affect Indigenous people, and that's not even just in Canada or North America. This affects people globally, all around the world. And one place that does stick out to me about a non-Indigenous boil water advisory is actually Flint, Michigan. And I learned about that one a while back, and I believe they still don't have access to clean drinking water, yes. So, again, this is something that not only affects Indigenous people, and that's why it's so important for us to all collaborate and work together and think like like-minded people. And when it comes to advocacy and the water dump, the waste dump, as you mentioned about Hamilton, I can do just about as much as all of you can do. And what we can do is use our voice, and that's just about our most powerful tool that we have is our voice. So using it to our advantage, advocating whenever and wherever we can, is what we can do. And pressing government, making these issues stay relevant and not let them just kind of sweep them under the carpet like they do everything else. So keeping them relevant, keeping the conversation going is how we can all advocate and use our voices together, because this isn't just the job of one person. This is a job that all of us, we have to all collectively do together. So.
Thank you. Now, a quick one, going back to some of my data questions. What's the freezing point?
0 degrees.
Oh my God, Michelle is on point. 0 degrees Celsius. Let's go. Give her a round of applause for Michelle, guys. There we go. She's going to dance first later on. But as we wind down in our session right now, remember there's the AMA section afterwards when we have our workshops. What specific policies, would you like to see government implement as it relates to supporting environmental needs in Indigenous communities?
Well, on terms of policies, I think that I will broadly say systemic change as a whole, because, I don't really know how we go about solving that. I don't really know the solution, but I do know that we need to, what's the word I'm looking for? Reverse what has been done. And I don't think you can really reverse what's been done. But on terms of policy, I think just following through with promises, if not making no promises at all. Because when a promise saying all First Nations boil water advisories will be resolved is a very, very broad promise to make to people who haven't been able to drink their water for over 20 years. So imagine being like, okay, everything's gonna be resolved, and then the time comes, it's not resolved, and you're let down by government yet again. So making realistic promises and policies can probably be the best way to go about that. And if not saying you're gonna resolve it all, at least saying we're gonna work toward it, we have the intention, we are gonna do something about it, but yeah, just not making internal promises.
So Karen, following through on these promises. Looking ahead, as we are in our last few minutes, looking ahead, what would be your vision for change improving Indigenous health, advocating for Indigenous people, for the environment and society at large, what would be your vision for the future?
I think my vision for the future would be for everybody to work together and for there to be no need to discuss oppression and colonialism and discrimination. We shouldn't really have to be talking about that, but we are. So I think that a future for me would be not having to address these issues, not having to still have to sit here and talk about clean drinking water and how we haven't had it for over 20 years. I think that's what a future looks like for me. Not having to talk about this, not having to be a young person and speaking up about this is what it would look like. And it's great to see all these other young advocates, speaking up and using their voice, but we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to speak up and use our voice. So that's what a future looks like for me.
And finally, last question. I may ask you one more after this, the last question. Finally, what message or call to action would you like to leave to our audience, to the CEOs, to our guests, to our friends, to everyone in this audience today? What's the message, what's the call to action that you would like to leave and impart with them today?
I think what I would leave is educate yourselves and get the proper education. And when it comes to working with Indigenous people, be extra sensitive and be very understanding. Because some of us may come with a lot, and that's okay, and that's not our fault. And if you don't know, it's also not your fault. And we're all learning at our own paces, and so it's okay to not know everything. But the willingness to learn is how you start. And I think it's just, it's a great thing to do. Just learn and be able to understand and work collaboratively with everyone without having to worry about racism and discrimination. And I think when it comes to me talking to any group, I always talk about young people. And I'm sure all of you have sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, young people in your life in some way. And encourage them to use their voice, hear them, listen to them, and inspire them, and encourage and motivate them. And out of all the places that I've spoken, young people had the most powerful and impactful messages. Because you generally wouldn't expect a young person to speak up or use their voice, especially regarding social or political or world issues. So when they do, I also like to say that's how you know something is wrong and something has to be done. But it's also so powerful because you don't normally see that. And it's just, you never really know how far just doing one simple thing will take you. So even if that's just as simple as using your voice within your workplace, within your organization or institution, that's how you start, and that's how you be a good ally.
I'm looking at Stash over there. I need to get that cat, right? Last question. Outside of being this phenomenal warrior, water warrior, what superpower would you like to have?
I think I would want to have the superpower to make change, just like that.
Like Thanos, eh?
It's just like, there's so many things that I would love to do, and there's so many things that I wish I could do. And, being the advocate that I am today, it took a lot of learning, and there's so much that I learned along the way. These issues aren't just water issues that Indigenous people face. Again, I'm actually studying criminology right now in university. I'm going into my second year, and that stems from learning simply just about the sacredness of water, because all these issues are interconnected. And what really stuck out to me was missing a murdered Indigenous woman. And so that's specifically what I'm kind of like individualizing my studies to. And if I could have one superpower, it would be able to implement land back. And what I would like to share is what land back means to me. And land back to me means our woman back, our people back, our language back, our culture back, and our rights back. So.
Thank you. Now, folks, Jamaica is a nice place, and the Caribbean is a nice place. It's filled with water all around. But I want to ask a question for someone here in the audience. If you could just jump up real quickly, we may have a gift for you. I'm going to try to speak to the organizers to get you a gift, right? So the question is for the audience. Michelle is ready for that gift. I don't know if she's qualified, but The question is, where in the world has the largest freshwater? We have somebody we had somebody over there. The largest freshwater island in the world. Where is it located? Say that again? Lake Huron, Manitoulin Island. Is that correct? Autumn, give her a round of applause. All right, stand again. We do have a gift for you. Oh, just throw it along. Just no, it's way in the back. Oh, I was wondering if you're going to really throw it all that way. Would be some strong arms. Thank you, folks. That has been our session by the water with Autumn and Marlon. Oh, we're still throwing the gift around. Until next year, same time, same place. Ciao. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much. That was awesome.
It was incredible.
It is heavy, but it is an important conversation, and that's why we're here. So hopefully that is going to be our inspiration to talk about some of the equity issues that we face, particularly regarding Indigenous health in Indigenous hands. So thank you very much, Autumn. Thank you, Marlon, for engaging that conversation. And if I may say something, two things, if I may say. One is, if the system wants to change the situation,
The system will change.
it can change it easily, I think. And I always will say, and yesterday we were talking about when people are tired of hearing, it's a time to say it again.
Tired of hearing about it.
Say it again, right?
Yeah.
If we all can remember, it's not too far distance away, but what happened during COVID and how the system changed to make things happen during COVID.
It's amazing how it mobilized.
If it is an issue for the system, it can mobilize and make it change. So I think we have a responsibility to acknowledge it, to take accountability for ourselves, to advocate for this issue, and to work in allyship with the Indigenous people to make this change. And these are the four, we call them at Taibu, we call them the 4 A's: acknowledgement, accountability, advocacy, and allyship. So if we can do that, I think there's a possibility for us to move this needle ahead.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Liban. And I just want to give an acknowledgement to everyone just how flexible and adaptable. We've had some changes bumping around in our schedule today. Normally, we would have started with an Indigenous opening, and really appreciate Mandy Mack making herself available to come and share with us and be part of an Indigenous opening and helping us continue in a good way for the rest of this conference. So Mandy Mack is a traditional healing and wellness manager from the Indigenous Primary Healthcare Council, IPHCC, and delighted to have her here for an opening and to continue us a good way. Mandy, thank you.
Wache, good morning. So I'm here on behalf of Jimmy Dick, who is our elder, and he's also a cousin of mine, so he sends his regrets. He will be here this evening to celebrate with you, but just wanted to acknowledge Jimmy, who couldn't be here this morning. As I said earlier, my name is Mandy. I'm originally from Attawapiskat First Nation, which is Cree territory. So normally we would start off with a prayer, but I think we've already had that prayer today, and that was through the words of Autumn Pelletier, who is our water warrior, our protector, and also a future leader for our people. So I want to say Chimigwech for those kind words. So instead, I'm actually going to share a song with you in honor of Autumn Pelletier and all of the warriors out there that are continuing to do the work on behalf of our people, and and thinking of our elders in the next 7 generations. So Chimigwech. So we have this saying in the Cree language. It's called Miswe Inowik, which means living the good life. And that's all we're trying to do as Indigenous people, is just live a good life. And so this is what this song represents. It's always striving to live that good life and feel proud as Indigenous people and to walk with our heads high. So, miigwech. So, miigwech. I hope you enjoy your day. Miigwech.
Sorry, Lieben, can you just hand me the, yeah, I forgot to bring it up with me. Miigwech for helping us get off in a good way this morning, and really appreciate you stepping in as a small token of appreciation and thanks. Oh, it hands it to me to hand it to you. It's very formal ceremonial here, yes. Thank you so much, miigwech. Thank you. So, just to remind you, you must pick up your tickets for the gala dinner tonight before noon. You must have the physical tickets in your hand to hand in at the door. It is no good begging and pleading that you paid for the ticket if you do not have the ticket in your hand. You've not met the Alliance staff. They're very firm on this rule. So, ticket is required before noon today. The other piece is that we're going to be going into break. So, reminder, only attend the sessions that you have registered for. Do not try and move into other registered sessions that you haven't gone for, because we are at full capacity, and so many of the workshop learning sessions are already full. With that being said, the learning sessions are at 11 a.m., so we have a break. During that break, what are you going to do? You're going to take your exhibitor passports. You're going to go have a little bit of meaningful engagement with the people at the booths, and then get it stamped and collect them all so that you can be entered in the draw that you must be for in person at the final plenary session tomorrow afternoon. With that, have a wonderful break. See you back when the music returns this afternoon. Cheers.